Welcome to Slice of PI, where we have quick hot takes on the news. I am Matt, and with me is my co-host, Borge. Say hello, Borge. Are you all
Hello,
right?
hello, hello,
All
hello.
right. Uh, well, you look like you had some extra strong coffee tonight. All
Yep,
right.
yep, 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 yep,
Well,
yep, yep.
so are you ready to have a hot take? All right.
Yep. Let's shove
All
this
right.
hot
Let's.
take of the news.
All right. So first off, we're going to do two instances of what is known as cancel culture. All right. So first, for those of you who watched the reality show Pinoy Big Brother, the latest evictee, as of this week, is Mr. Russu Laurente, the second housemate to leave Pinoy Big Brother, particularly because he admitted to being in favor of the closure of ABS-CBN, particularly by the Duterte administration, because he was exposed to pro-Duterte media. But later on, he actually admitted that he didn't know what he was talking about. Unfortunately, he went under fire, and as a result, people chose not to vote for him. And even hostess Toni Gonzaga tried to defend him, saying, he's just a young person, that he he's still learning, and for defending him, they in turn, how you say, bashed her, both the contestant and the host. But the thing is, her family has known to being somewhat, if not really supportive, but what's the word? Sympathetic to the administration at times. Particularly Alex Gonzaga, his sister, who has been more openly pro Duterte. And then, of course, related to that, is another instance. Much before that, around December, there's this one artist by the name of Avel Bacudio. Am I saying that right? An artist of the Idea First company, and they took down his items from the merchandise. They cut ties for making a TikTok video saying that, and I quote, "For me, ang pinakamagaling na first lady ng Pilipinas ay si Imelda Marcos, or the best first lady is Imelda Marcos," which of course, that's
Well,
quite contentious
to
for
be,
and for a lot of people. Any praise of Marcos is just terrible. It's a terrible thing to say. It's disrespectful to people who lost their lives. Lost their lives during the regime. So as a result, these two people, in a way, their livelihoods were at stake in being canceled for their personal political opinions. So that's the news. What do you think about that, March?
no, let's just call it as it is. They're forming mobs. Cancel culture is the current spirit of the digital mob right now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my primary reaction to this one. Let's just call it as it
Mm-hmm.
is. Let's call a spade a spade. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
trying to practice cancel culture, they're part of a mob. But
Mm-hmm.
then again, unlike the
Mm-hmm.
classic mobs that can actually drag politicians out of their offices and kill them, these digital mobs, well, they're pretty harmless.
Harmless. What are you talking about?
Well, politically harmless, to be more specific, but they target
Mm-hmm.
those who are already have a lesser degree of power. Prominent,
Mm-hmm.
but not as powerful as those in office.
Mm. Well, for one thing, so it's harmless to harmless people, or is it Is that what you're saying?
It's harmless to the powerful.
It's harmless to the powerful. Is that what you? Okay. Because the thing is, for one thing, what's troublesome here is that the mobs are actually affecting people's way of living for having personal opinions
Hmm.
that are quite contrary, quite controversial. But at the same time, they have the right to have those opinions. In fact, if it doesn't, like for me, if it doesn't affect the way that they do their job, then they should be fine. I mean, these aren't teachers, these aren't, how you say, news writers. These, well, one is an upcoming actor and the hostess, and the other one is just as an artist. And of course they have a online presence, but their opinions, will they sway people to be Duterte? Some people are saying that they're enabling the oppressive and harmful regime. So that's one thing. Do you think it's worth, how you say, turning the mob towards these more or less? Well, they're not. Well, they're prominent people, but are they powerful enough to make a difference, or will taking them
Hmm.
out make a difference at all?
Yeah, they don't. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what will happen if you take out those people? The
Mm-hmm.
structure remains, power structures
Mm-hmm.
remains, and political inequality remains. The thing is,
Mm-hmm.
these people. practicing cancel culture should just be honest and say that they are as repressive as those that they dub as repressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it. They should just be honest and call themselves a mob, an e-mob.
Mm-hmm.
At least we have a new concept.
Mm. So you're saying is, it's okay for them to be a mob as long as they're honest about it.
Yeah, they should just be honest
Yeah.
about it.
So you're okay with how you say punishing people for having quote unquote wrong opinions.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. We move to a different issue, which is quite related,
Mm-hmm.
which is, can you fight fire with fire? How can you fight
Mm-hmm.
repression? Can you fight
Mm-hmm.
repression with an equal or a different kind of repression? So I think those are
Mm-hmm.
questions that are being dragged aside simply because of this cancel culture, that people have a tendency
Mm-hmm.
to repress without knowing that they are actually repressing. They have a tendency to silence other people
Mm-hmm.
based on their judgments about the quality
Mm-hmm.
of those people's opinions. Should they even
Mm-hmm.
hold such judgments and evaluations? What right do we
Mm-hmm.
have to judge someone's opinion? So these
Mm-hmm.
are questions. These are not rhetorical questions. These are actual questions that are being cast aside by this
Mm-hmm.
impulse to cancel.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're going to ask me, I think
Mm,
they're right in having these judgments. They're right in being able to at least take them, make them accountable. But the thing is, you do it in a space of equal discussion.
mm.
Like what we mentioned in the episode before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you don't affect. You don't try to affect their way of livelihood, unless,
Mm,
of course, their livelihood is their political opinions affect their livelihood. Like, for instance, if they're a newscaster, or if they're a news writer, or if they're a textbook writer, a historian, etc.,
mm,
they need to be objective. But if you're just an actor
mm.
or I say an artist, and they're not, or they won't always talk about political things, then I mean, let them have their opinions, let them have their personal convictions, if ever. In fact, these aren't
But
exactly inflammatory per se.
mm,
In fact, it's one guy just admitting that he was wrong, so he should be allowed. Maybe that's not the primary reason, but people continued bashing him for it,
mm,
in regards to Tony, he's just defending like a kid.
mm.
So yeah, it's an act of compassion, and people are punishing her for it. So it's a little bit displaced, don't you think?
But then again, we also have cultural forms of power.
Hmm.
That's one thing. Should we count those people? The thing is, the thing about cancel culture is that it redirects anger away from those who are supposed to feel it. So instead of
Mm.
targeting the leaders, they are targeting the messengers, targeting
Hmm.
representatives of that actual power. Can they
Yeah,
cancel Duterte?
right. Yeah, they probably should. well,
They should,
but
yeah.
here's the thing. What do you think about their opinions first and foremost? Like, for instance, like being in favor of ABS-CBN, or for this other artist, who says that Imelda Marcos is the greatest first lady, which is honestly like she has the biggest impact. I mean, she's right. What do you think?
To be fair, yeah. Sino bang kakompetensya ni Imelda? Si Aurora Quezon. but, then
Oh
again,
yeah.
but what do I think about their opinions? Well, part of me would say I would agree with you, and they have the right to their opinion, but that is utterly liberal, and I'm not liberal. Should
Hmm.
they have those? Should they have those types of opinions? The fact is, they do. So I think the problem is not them having such opinions, but what are the deeper factors that have shaped or that have allowed such opinions to emerge?
Hmm.
Should they have the right? Well, they have it. That's one thing. I don't care if they have the right to have an opinion or not. The point is they have it. So how to deal with
Right.
it is a different thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So how about this? Let me put
Hmm,
it this way: if you're an employer and one of
hmm,
your employees
hmm,
has how you say, let's say, is a supporter of Duterte,
hmm,
and he starts making posts on the social media, what do
hmm.
you do?
What do I do? It depends on my level of support for or against Duterte. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on my level of support because if my level of support for Duterte is high, then I would just let the employee be. But if I'm against Duterte, then I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't help myself but repress.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, that's me putting myself on the shoe of an
Right.
employer. But for my case,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do? I am beyond such dichotomies at this point. I simply don't
Uh-huh.
care. But then again, I would
Uh-huh.
probably ask him why he holds such
Mm-hmm.
opinions.
Mm-hmm. All right. At least you're open to discussion.
Yeah.
But in fact, actually, from in my case, again, it is the nature of the work,
Mm.
and of course, these are media personalities. But what makes a vibrant media environment is that multiple issues and perspectives can coexist, and maybe possibly even be in conflict with each other. They can be
Mm.
resolved in this on the screen, and that'll be great.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I think for us, I think the attitudes of Filipinos is they. I don't think we as a society are used to having that conflict or that debate in play or
Mm.
in front
Mm.
of us
Yeah.
in the screen. There's
Mm.
always a good guy and there's always a bad guy, and the bad guy will always be wrong.
Mm.
So that's problematic. But you
Mm.
know, anyway. So
But yeah.
how should we? What? Yeah. One last thing before we move forward from this. Like, how should we? What should we learn from these two instances of people losing their jobs over political opinions?
First, it is unavoidable in the current climate, so
Mm-hmm.
we can expect more of this tragic, to an extent, instances. Second, we need to shift our attention away from people's opinions to the processes that allowed them to form such opinions, which is a more difficult problem to handle. The thing is, it's petty to just focus on someone's opinions. It's a bit more
Mm-hmm.
difficult to focus on how or why that person came up with such opinions in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm. So in other words, focus on, like, say, how that person was educated, or
Yeah,
yeah,
the
rather than or
values they
hmm
have.
yeah. Because again, there's a discussion to be had there, because they
Mm,
are in the media. They're in the
mm,
process of making visual information and content.
mm,
So of course there is some need for control there. But at the same time, these aren't ideologues. These are people
mm,
who are saying things in jest,
mm,
even in jest. One is in jest, possibly, and the other one is just a guy admitting he was wrong, which is at the same time shouldn't be, punished, for something he admitted to be wrong,
mm.
in the past. So yeah. Anyway, so anything else before we go?
No, what about you? How would you try to resolve this? I mean, well, first and foremost, my question would be, cancel culture is not that predominant yet in the Philippines. So
Hmm.
how will you handle it? How should we handle it?
How should we handle it? Uh, well, personally, like, my view is that we never, well, it's never to punish people for having certain opinions. We always discuss them, and have an open discourse. And the thing is, I think I've said this again.
Mm,
You don't threaten their jobs unless their job has to do with political formation of opinions,
mm,
or like if it's education or if
mm,
it's information.
mm,
But if it's not directly related to that, like if we're a company of, say, paper salesmen, then who
mm,
cares about your political opinions? The thing
mm,
is, political opinions, whether right or wrong, they should be openly discussed and,
mm,
openly discussed and expressed. And that's the only way we can have an immunity to bad opinions,
mm,
by having them by expose. It's like a vaccine. You just
mm.
have a bit of it, and that we'll be able to have that intellectual immunity to bad opinions by exposing ourselves to these bad opinions,
Yep.
and then taking them down, but not, how you say, not destroying
But yeah.
them outright.
Mm,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And that has been the first slice of PI. We'll be back with more quick deep dives on the news later on. So please keep listening. And until then,
Magandang gabi, mga ka-PI.